Life was simple, life was slower, life was special. Bridgeton, Indiana. It's a picturesque small town in Parke County with a rich history. A history that began in 1818 when Joseph O'Neill and James Wasson purchased 200 acres of prime land from the United States government. The fertile land was abundant with trees, wildlife, and rushing water, known today as the Big Raccoon Creek. With all that this location offered, O'Neill and Wasson had the natural resources and ambition to establish the town's first industries, a sawmill and a grist mill. The mill was a central point where people gathered to attend business as well as visit and catch up on the news. As the village flourished, a post office was established, and a simple, open-air bridge welcomed visitors and residents alike, giving them safe passage over the creek. The crude bridge not only served as an entry point to the town, but also brought about a new and permanent name for this community, Bridgeton. During its years of service, the rudimentary bridge collapsed, and the town worked to rebuild their namesake. After it collapsed a second time, the Board of Commissioners contracted to have it rebuilt. That was in 1868, and a 245-foot charming covered bridge was built by J.J. Daniels for $10,200. It was a double-span, burr-arch design that provided faithful service for around 100 years until it became necessary to build a concrete bridge to accommodate heavier vehicles and farm equipment. Even though a modern bridge was used for traffic, the beloved covered bridge continued to serve as an icon for the town of Bridgeton. Tragedy struck in April 2005 when the bridge was reduced to burnt timbers at the hands of an arsonist. While the heartbreak of losing the town's 137-year-old treasure ran deep, the community band together and decided that disaster would not be the end of this story. Taking strength from the setbacks their earlier residents overcame, the people of Parke County vowed to rebuild and forge a new beginning for Bridgeton. Just 9 months after the bridge was destroyed, ashes still on the ground, a kickoff event was held on January 12, 2006. It was a picture-perfect day where the warm winter air matched the warmth that filled the hearts of all those in attendance. With hundreds of citizens gathered around, the 13-member bridge team put forth their resolve to build a new bridge and rallied the audience with their words.
So what are we doing here? Well, we're going to build a covered bridge. It's been referred to as a substitute bridge or a replacement bridge or a replica bridge. I want you to understand that from our point of view, it's none of those things. It's not a substitute for something that was there. It's not a replica of something that was there. It's a covered bridge. This bridge was built in 1868. Been there for a long time. Served the purpose for all this county for many, many years until the 1960s. 100 years it served the county well. But then the county and the need surpassed the strength of that bridge and the ability of that bridge. So in 1966, the county obtained right away to build a concrete bridge over here so it can handle the traffic that need to be handled, the trucks that need to go over that, the farm equipment that needed to go through and over that. But the commissioners were wise enough in the 1960s to understand that this has value even as not a transportation carrier, as doing what it has always done to create this beautiful site, one of the most photographed sites in Indiana. So they chose to set aside that bridge. Rather than tear it down, let's set aside, let's get some new right-of-way next to it and build a bridge there and save this. That's what was accomplished. Well, that bridge was taken away from us. We decided we're not going to take that. We're going to build another bridge. And so we're not building a copy. We're not building a replica. We're building a covered bridge because we want to have a covered bridge here again, and that's what we're here for. Now, the question comes up, well, who's doing it? Well, this is going to be kind of corny, but who's doing this covered bridge? If you just spend a couple minutes here and look around you, this is who's doing this covered bridge. It's not these guys. It's not us. It's not me. It's you people who have shown interest in this, who have made donations to this, who have supported the cause all along. That's who's building this covered bridge.
On behalf of the community, it is such a great feeling to be where we are now, because we all stood here last April 28th in disbelief that we had lost something that was so dear to us. And this group of people, this community, and all of our elected officials, it's a wonderful example for everyone out there in the world beyond of what a community and elected officials and people can do when you all work together. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything that's happened so far. And we've got a ways to go, but we're going to do it.
Well, it's a long way from being a tree in the woods to being a timber in a bridge, so work began on harvesting the trees that would be used for the new 245-foot bridge. Shortly after the team put out word that they needed people to donate oak and poplar trees, calls started pouring in from generous citizens. These people gave everything from 1 or 2 trees to as many as 25 or more. Their contribution to the project was not only a faithful gesture that their trees were going to a great cause, but the monetary value was tremendous. 3 local lumber companies, Pike Lumber, Cook & Sons, and Pingleton, volunteered to fell and transport the 238 trees that were donated from 36 different area residents. The state even offered as many trees that the bridge would require. With their help, the community more than covered the amount of trees, once again showing their spirit for coming together for the ultimate goal, a goal that resonated with all those involved.
I'm Jim Hill of Pike Lumber Company. I'm a logging supervisor for the company. I've worked for Pike now a little over 28 years. After my wife and I got married, we lived just north of Bridgeton, and we used to go in, of course, the Bridgeton store. We did hang around some. My family, my brother's family used to own the mill, and my great-great-grandfather, J. Bridden, built several bridges in the county back at the turn of the century. So, you know, it's a little bit, it's a little close for me. I just enjoy helping.
Help also came from 3 Wood-Mizer sawmill owners, Terry Rooksbury, Don Price, and Dan Collum. From day one, these 3 gentlemen all agreed to saw the logs into lumber as volunteers. The staging area for the logs and sawing was in a field just across the road from where the old bridge once resided. When these stately logs took their place, it was the first obvious sign that a new bridge was imminent. On a spring day, early in the season, the recognizable orange mills went to work. It was an impressive and smooth operation. Lined up in a row, these portable sawmills cut every piece of lumber for the forthcoming covered bridge, including beams as long as 45 feet.
Long stuff is not easy to cut because the stress in it has a tendency to bow, and you have to cut it slow and a slab at a time and keep turning it till you get it down to where the stress is almost out of it. And that keeps it good and straight.
The cut list included more than just lengthy boards. In addition, all the flooring and siding were sawed, with the crew concentrating on getting the most out of every donated log. Terry's group played an important role in this task.
Well, we mostly kind of cleaned up the slabs. Cut a lot of flooring, cut a lot of siding, cut a lot of blocking.
Yep.
No, I think Terry had the hardest job, to tell you the truth.
Yep. Physically, he did.
Physically,
I mean, he really did.
The physical demands of sawing were eased as many volunteers gathered from in and around the Bridgeton area. These helpful hands assisted with loading logs, off-bearing boards, and sorting and stacking lumber. A total of 120,000 board feet was cut, and a range of 50 to 100 hours was put on each sawmill owner's machine. To further increase production, the sawyers enlisted the help of another machine.
Wood-Mizer brought an edger down, had a little Caterpillar diesel on it, if I remember right, and I lined up 8 guys that day on a Saturday to help us rip everything. And we had between 4,000 and 5,000 board feet here. There was 6.4 hours put on that, and we cut between 4,000 and 5,000 feet with that edger, and just, it worked everybody's tail off. I mean,
While it's difficult to guess the number of total hours volunteered for the sawing effort, a conservative estimate is around 2,100 hours. During the course of a busy day sawing, it was not uncommon for passers-by to stop a while and watch. School groups even spent time at the sawing site to better understand how trees play a vital part in bridge construction. Already, our sawyers were feeling a kinship to the new bridge, even though it had not yet begun to take shape and was only boards awaiting their final destination.
I think it was an honor to cut it out. I mean, you know, it was, I have been through that bridge thousands of times, and it touched me, and that somebody would be stupid enough to burn it.
Good feeling to know that I had a little bit of help in it.
how about you? No second thoughts, no looking back. It's uphill from here, just continue on.
Not all of the action took place in the field across the road from the old bridge site. Supporting the bridge was the responsibility of 3 piers, known as abutments. These stone structures were located one at each end of the bridge, with one in the middle, and had served the bridge well for more than 135 years. When the bridge was lost, a silver lining shone. This was the perfect opportunity to completely rebuild all of the abutments by individually removing each stone and ensuring that they would, once again, provide a firm foundation for a newly coveted bridge. During this process, the builders decided to have some of the stones replaced. Keeping with the theme of community involvement, the replacements came from the Red Bridge, another Parke County treasure that had been lost to fire, but still had usable sandstone. Several stones were extracted from the old abutments of the Red Bridge and were resized for their new life in Bridgeton.
My name's Robin Roberts. I work for Apex Masonry out of Terre Haute. My crew, the bricklayer Gary Smith, apprentice bricklayer Dane Norton, and our hod carrier Tim Huppengardner.
This is the first bridge abutment like this you've done?
Yes, it is.
What do you think about the job?
It's different. I enjoy it. Not many places you can work with the creek running and ice cream shop up over the hill, so it's something neat to work on.
What was it like taking it apart? Was it exciting taking it apart? Was it tough taking it apart?
It was harder than I thought it was going to be to get some of the stuff. I was surprised how well the stones were still hooked together when we tore the Red Bridge apart. I mean, I thought, you know, going in, as old as it was and as long as the bridge had been down, that it would come right apart, but it was still structurally pretty sound.
This is all sandstone, right?
Yes.
And probably all locally quarried from the Mansfield Quarry?
That's what I hear. As far as I know, yes, it all comes from the Mansfield Quarry.
How do you think those guys did this in the years before you had the equipment you got today?
I'm just glad I didn't have to do it.
I guess it'd just be all horses.
It amazes me. I don't know. The trouble we have with the motorized forklifts and stuff, and we still have a tough time with moving some of these stones around. And think back doing it with horses and wagons. I mean, I'm sure they used block and tackles. They had to build wooden structures of some kind, scaffolding of some kind to pick them up with. You can look at these stones and you see these little holes in them, and that's how they handled them. They had steel tongs that would hook in the back and the front of the stone, and that's how they would hoist them. So they had ways of doing it. I mean, I don't know how it was. I'd like to see pictures of it, but they had ways of getting it done, evidently.
Did this surprise you to find how this thing was put together?
Well, I was surprised it had mortar in it. I didn't figure that they would mortar them together back in the 1860s. I figured they just set them in sand or set them dry on top of one another and stacked them. But I was really surprised to see the mortar that was in between the stones. And a lot of it was still in good shape.
2 contractors had gone together to win this bid to build this covered bridge: David Waters, owner of the Beamery, and Dan Collum. Dan Collum's company, Square and Level Construction, was in charge of the project at the building site and affectionately became known as the builders of the Bridgeton Bridge. His crew began carrying out the blueprint plans, which called for 2 exact 122.5-foot spans to be built off-site and ultimately married together into one remarkable bridge that spanned the Big Raccoon Creek. Dan and his small crew, which included his immediate family and close friends, spent 12 days putting together the span skeletons.
Had no doubt in my mind I could build one. It was just, I had cut out a lot of the components and was not afraid of any part of it. Pretty much knew how the bridges worked, what part done what. And I think after these guys realized how they go together and how the components work, I think they realized that it is something that a crew can do. And if you take your time and cut good tight joints, and it can happen, it can be done. Never once did I doubt that I could not do it. I actually thought it would take us longer. I did think that, but I had no doubts. I knew we could do it.
The construction crew used techniques from the early timber framing days as well as modern methods to bring the bridge to life.
And when you look at them and actually look into the design of them, it really shocks me. Some of the things that we have lost that haven't been known about how these were built and how long it took. Did we do it faster than they did, even though we have better tools, or did we accomplish something the same as they did? We were learning as we went on some of it, but it was really an impressive project. It was a lot of fun.
One thing that will forever set this bridge apart is how the individuals got to personalize their involvement and support. Wooden pegs were made available for people to sponsor, and in return they got to sign the peg and have it placed in the bridge. If you look inside, along the top of the bridge, you will see the round end of many pegs are specially marked. Years from now, generations can visit the bridge and see the impact of the community. The crew also had the privilege of personalizing their contribution. On an inner cord timber, which was tucked up against one of the scarf joints, every crew member signed his or her name.
It means a lot to me. I mean, something, once I get older or have grandkids and everything, I think that's, a very impressive thing to me. For them to be able to see something I've done and be here for a very long time.
While their names are in a place that will never be visible, the workers know that they are there and symbolize their bond with the bridge. What was quite noticeable, though, was the vastness of these structures. As they took shape, they struck a bold pose against the tree-lined horizon. After months of preparation, the reality of a new bridge was becoming more evident. As the group savored the moment of getting the bridge completed up to this important point, they were eagerly awaiting the day when 2 cranes would come and take these spans to their new home. Exactly 16 months after the bridge was burned, a namesake for the town would rise again. 2 cranes had the awesome responsibility of lifting the spans onto their new foundations. While the day was filled with anticipation, there was also a lot of nervous energy, and rightfully so, since these cranes held in their clutches months of hard work and determination. All of the work, though, was not just swinging hammers and pounding nails. Many locals have been working hard behind the scenes on fundraising efforts. On this day, their emotions were high.
Well, the night that it burned, we all, or most of us, thought, we will rebuild the bridge. We were just determined that we would, and I couldn't believe the community effort. But the next day I called Greg Harbison at the National Bank, and he set up a fund immediately, just overnight, that we could have funds sent to, and then First Financial helped also. So it's unbelievable how many people mailed money in, and we had fundraisers. And at festival last year we had an information booth that had a model of the bridge there, and tremendous donations. We've had all kinds of little donations, little fundraisers, which took quite a lot of work, but they didn't produce near as much as some of the bigger things. Terre Haute, within a couple of weeks, we had WTHI and for Old National Bank had a fundraiser on Wabash Avenue, and we had one in Rockville on the street, and we got in over $16,000 that one day. So just everything just grew, and then companies donated money. It's unbelievable how many people loved our old bridge, and to come back and say, I went fishing with Grandpa under that bridge, or I went swimming under that bridge. People from far, we got calls that just were interested in seeing that it got built again, and here we are.
With a large crowd gathered around, including 400 school children, each span took its turn getting trucked from its temporary home over to the concrete bridge. As the first span waited regally, it was a patriotic moment with the American flag waving proudly in the wind. The cranes took hold and, working together, strategically set the south span. The procedure was flawless, and the crowd responded with applause, knowing that there was still one more to go. As the second span took its place and prepared to be moved, it was easy to think that since these cranes are accustomed to holding massive objects, each 45,800-pound bridge span was probably nothing to them. However, what these structures weighed in emotions was immeasurable. Thankfully, the second span was set as smoothly as the first, and in just a couple of hours, the bridge framework was in place. The crowd celebrated as the bridge came together and took the first breath of its new life. From the vantage point of an average observer, the crew of Square and Level Construction made the project look easy. However, there were a lot of details to which Dan Collum and his crew paid close attention.
I'll try to give you a little bit of a rundown on the type of bridge we have here and how some of the construction of it was done. It is a king post design with a burr arch. The king post is the post in the center of the bridge. It has the king post, which the 2 diagonal struts lead out from there and continue out from every post from the upper part of the king to the lower part of the next. That actually diverts the load from the center of the bridge to the abutments. The pressure and the load increases the closer you get to the abutment. It's holding up the weight, the dead load, the weight of the bridge, and also a traffic bridge or even people walking on it, the live load. If you look at this bridge as a whole, it's overwhelming. But you break it down piece by piece, which is pretty much what we done. We took each member and cut all of those members out. You cut all the diagonal struts, you cut all of the chords, uppers and lowers, you cut all of your arch members. Then once everything is cut into components and stacked and you have them all counted and make sure they're all good quality to use, then we start assembling it. We assembled it on the ground on false work by laying the lower chords down, standing up the post, and as we put in 3 to 4 posts, depending on the length of the piece of lower cord, then we would draw that part together. We would move on down, continue on. Then we put the upper cord on, all the lower X braces to straighten it all, the cross ties, then the upper X braces. That give us a skeleton. Then we string lined it and straightened it, tightened it all up. Before the diagonal struts were inserted, the diagonal struts was the very last member to go in the skeleton, because we had built this 122.5 foot section, each of them level. At that point, we jacked it up, we pulled all the shims out, and we had a calculated 12-inch camber, which is the amount of crown in the floor. Then at that point, we pulled the shims out and let the jacks down. It took approximately 15 to 20 seconds, and the entire structure bent 12 inches to a perfect camber. Then we started making jigs and cutting the diagonal struts to fit from the center point out. And the diagonal struts here at the king post are approximately 3 inches shorter than the diagonal struts at the end due to the camber and the post dropping as they went down. That increases the length of the diagonal struts. Most people had thought that the arches were actually bent in the original bridges, but they were not. When you observe them and look at them close, they were originally hand hewn. Of course, we have modern tools, and we increased our time in our production by building a jig and cutting them with a saw. We started out with approximately a 20 to 22 inch wide timber, 6 inches thick, 24 feet long. We calculated our radius and built a template and cut the arches. After the skeletons were set over here, at that point we put the remainder of the floor beams in, the floor stringers and the flooring. We raftered it, put the burr arches in after we loaded the bridge as much as we could to get as much dead load on as possible, so the trusses were carrying their part of the load. Then we put the burr arches in. We figure in about 4 years, when this bridge is pretty much dry, trusses will be carrying part of the load and the burr arch will be carrying part of the load. I believe it was probably around 1811, 1812 that Theodore Burr invented or patented the burr arch. Up until that point, there was king post, queen post, different truss designs, but if one key member in the bridge failed, the whole bridge would collapse and fall in the water. And Theodore Burr realized that if he sandwiched the truss between 2 arches, that it had a dual support system. I honestly believe the reason Parke County still has so many covered bridges is because we do have the burr arch, and if a lower chord or a king post, a diagonal strut fails, the arch will still hold the dead load and even a small live load. If an arch member fails, if the truss is in good shape, the truss will still withstand. The scarfs are an interesting joint if you would like to get a shot at the scarfs. The way these work, there's double lower chords that have the post sandwiched between them. And of course you don't have timbers 122 feet long that you can make these out of. So they are made of multiple pieces. And this splice joint has been around for who knows how long. I've seen it in many bridges, even some of them in probably 30s and 40s. And as this member tries to pull apart, as well as it pulling against these points on the scarf, it is also trying to shear this wood where these metal plates are let in there and is bolted together and the bolts run through right behind those metal plates. So you have quite a bit of shear pressure there to keep this from pulling apart. It's a very strong joint, very strong. It's been used for years, and the one that was here before was 137 years old, and had it not been for an arsonist, it would be here today. And we used the old scarf joints and the pattern come from it to make the new ones. We was able to use all of the washers from the old bridge, and kids swimming over the summer, salvaging washers for us. We didn't have to buy any washers. We found enough to completely do the bridge. And we did use some stone from another bridge west of here that had burnt, and pulled some stone from the red bridge, brought up here, resized them, and used them in this bridge. So I feel good about the whole process. It went smooth, and I'm very happy with it.
The rebuilding of the Bridgeton Bridge was a rare opportunity to see history in the making. As the crew worked on the arches, the flooring, and siding, that history looked very much like the one that served Bridgeton and held so many fond memories. With red siding that was nearly an exact match, and similar open-air windows, the only obvious difference in the new bridge was the safety rails which were necessary to meet Indiana law for pedestrian bridges. There was no facet overlooked. As volunteers cleaned the area, the crew trimmed bolts which were specially made in neighboring Terre Haute.
Well, it started out just being buddies with the guys that was kind of trying to get things going, and then you hear all what's going on with it. You know, you just kind of want to be involved. Everybody needed help to get it going, and we just, all chipped in to see if we can get this thing rolling.
When completely finished, the bridge will weigh approximately 245,000 pounds and will once again bring Parke County's number of covered bridges back to 31, making it truly the covered bridge capital of the world. On Sunday, October 1st, 2006, just 9 months after the kickoff ceremony, the team once again gathered to address the community. On this special day, there was no mistaking that the bridge project was truly a community affair. Standing at the same podium, but this time with the bridge serving as their backdrop, Jim Meese began the ribbon-cutting ceremony with a poignant poem by 68-year-old Richard Lyons.
It says, "One picture's worth 1,000 words, as the saying goes. The bridge was simply indescribable, as everyone knows. God crafted a perfect setting. He was truly at his best, and a few good people came along, and they did the rest. What they created there has met the test of time. It was a true masterpiece, both bucolic and sublime. One fateful night, evil came and ruined what others had done, and it looked for a very short while that the bad guy had won. But what they didn't count on was Bridgeton's fight, just to take this wrong and turn it to right. We salute you, old Bridgeton, for the lesson you've shown us, that true destiny is ours, and Satan does not own us."
The event went on to thank all those involved and to place a special blessing on the new bridge and the community. With probably 1,000 or more people gathered around, the program included music performed by local artists who had written specifically about the bridge, an invocation, and leading the crowd in singing the national anthem together.
Star-Spangled Banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
With the celebration on a high note, the team accounted for the magnitude of donations and proudly recognized the dedicated workers.
Because of this dedication, our total expenditures as of last Friday, $190,342.13. The construction of this bridge is going to come in at under $200,000.
With an original estimate of $1.5 million, this phenomenal price was covered in great part by the volunteer labor and the many companies that did their work for at cost or less.
It's absolutely amazing. I've never experienced anything like this before. So many good people coming together to put this bridge back up. It's absolutely amazing. A good friend of mine, Naomi King, just a couple of days ago told me that this new bridge is a monument to the goodness of people.
It was really impressive, the amount of volunteers that came out and actually chipped in, the community here. That the meeting that was held, it was within a month probably after the first bridge was burnt. It was amazing the community came out for that, and it felt like an old town meeting. It was held here in Bridgeton, and I thought, wow, this bridge is going to take place. It's going to happen.
And it did happen. So, with community pride high, the 13-member bridge team gathered around and, with scissors in hand, officially cut the ribbon and opened the bridge for all to enjoy this new piece of history. The lifeblood of Bridgeton was back.
I can't think of anything that means really more to me than to have done something for our community that has meant so much to our community as this has. To know that we were a part of bringing that back to our community, our county, it's been a great thing.
It already has a history of its own. It's built with volunteers and donations. It's a big bridge, and that to me is almost a miracle. So this bridge already has a wonderful history of its own, and it's going to have a long, long history.
The biggest thing about this, I think, though, was seeing the number of volunteers coming and seeing them all coming and not asking for any money, not asking for anything. To see people bringing meals to feed those volunteers every day. That cost was covered every day by people bringing in food. So working together for the same thing, that's been the joy of this whole process.
When the bridge burnt, the morning the bridge burnt, it was like a lot of people. It left a hole in me, a void. And it was something that I knew could not be filled until it was replaced. I made up my mind that day that one way or the other I was going to be a part of replacing this bridge. I didn't know how big a part I would play, but I knew I would be a part of it. Told my wife the other evening, we had the siding on and we went to town and was coming back and it was dark, and of course you could see the street lights in town, and when we come around the corner it was a little chilly and the steam coming up off the water, and I told my wife, I said, it feels like home again. You know, the bridge is back and it filled that void. That emptiness is gone. It's here. It's back.
They say we lost an old friend, and everybody's feeling down. The sorrow that we feel is also being felt way beyond this one-horse town. But she will rise again like the phoenix from the ashes, and we'll be smiling when we come around the bend. 'Cause she will rise again. It takes a cold, cold heart to take a piece of our past away. You can burn wood and paint and nails, but you can't take her spirit away. And she will rise again like the phoenix from the ashes. We'll be smiling when we come around the bend. 'Cause she will rise again. We will tell our children what she meant to us, and all about the day when she was gone. Then we'll bring them to this place to meet her brand new face, and they can make some memories of their own. And she will rise again like the phoenix from the ashes, and we'll be smiling when we come around the bend. 'Cause she will rise, now she's alive again. Phoenix.